In a room filled with wealth, power, and judgment, a black single father stood exactly where society expected him to be, silent and invisible. No one paid attention to him until he did something that stunned everyone watching. In a split second, he kissed a billionaire heiress in front of the entire room, shattering every unspoken rule. Gasps echoed, cameras flashed, assumptions spread instantly. To the world, it looked like scandal, like disgrace. But what no one understood in that moment was this: that kiss wasn't desire, it was desperation. So why would a man risk his life, his dignity, and his future like that? And who was he really trying to save? Comment and tell us where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. And subscribe for more powerful stories. Brandon Hayes was used to being overlooked. As a black single father, invisibility had become a survival skill. At work, in public spaces, in rooms where power didn't look like him. Every morning, he followed the same routine. Get his daughter ready for school, make sure her homework was in her bag, and remind her that no matter how the world treated her, she mattered. Then he put on his blue driver's suit and stepped into a role that demanded silence, obedience, and restraint. For the past few months, Brandon had been working as a private driver for Olivia Cartwright, a billionaire heiress suddenly thrust into the spotlight after her father's unexpected death. She was young, powerful, and constantly surrounded by people who smiled too much and asked too many questions. Brandon's job was simple on paper: drive, wait, observe nothing, say nothing. But observation was something he couldn't turn off. Long before he became a driver, he'd learned how to read rooms, sense danger, and notice what others missed. That night's charity gala was supposed to be elegant, controlled, safe. Crystal chandeliers lit the ballroom, expensive laughter filled the air, and guests moved confidently through wealth that had never been denied to them. Olivia stood out instantly, wearing a striking red dress that drew attention from every corner of the room. Cameras followed her, eyes lingered, opinions formed. Brandon stayed at the edges, exactly where people expected him to be. To most of the guests, he was just the help, a black man in a blue suit who blended into the background. No one questioned his presence, and no one bothered to learn his name. But Brandon wasn't watching the lights or the money. He was watching movement, faces, hands, patterns that didn't belong. There was a tension in the air that night, subtle but real. Brandon felt it tightening with every passing minute. Olivia had enemies she didn't even know about, people who saw her as an obstacle, not a person. And Brandon had the unsettling sense that whatever had taken her father hadn't finished its work. He didn't know when it would happen. He only knew one thing with absolute certainty: before the night was over, everything was going to change. The moment unraveled faster than logic could keep up. Brandon noticed the danger before his thoughts fully formed, the way instinct sometimes reacts ahead of reason. A server moved through the crowd with a tray held too carefully, his attention locked not on the path ahead, but on one person alone. The champagne glass reached Olivia's hand, the liquid catching the chandelier light. Brandon's chest tightened. The pattern was wrong, the timing was wrong, and there was no time to warn anyone. In front of hundreds of powerful guests, Brandon made a decision that would change everything. He stepped forward, out of place, out of line, and kissed Olivia, pressing his mouth to hers just as she was about to raise the glass. Gasps ripped through the room. The kiss was sudden, shocking, and deeply misunderstood. To everyone watching, it looked like a black driver crossing a boundary he never should have crossed. Phones lifted. Whispers exploded. Judgment arrived instantly. What no one saw was the poison. As Brandon pulled away, the champagne transferred to him. Within seconds, a bitter, metallic taste burned his tongue. His throat tightened. His vision blurred at the edges. The sacrifice had worked, but now the cost was coming due. Olivia reacted with anger and humiliation, her shock mirroring the crowd's outrage. To her, it looked like betrayal. To the room, it confirmed every ugly assumption they were ready to believe. Security moved fast. Eyes hardened. Hands hovered near restraint. Brandon felt the shift immediately, not concern, not curiosity, but suspicion. He wasn't treated like someone who had acted to protect. He was treated like a problem that needed to be removed, a black man who had stepped out of his assigned role. As the poison began to take hold, Brandon struggled to stay upright. His body betrayed him in public, yet no one rushed to help. The attention stayed fixed on Olivia's embarrassment, not on the man visibly losing control of his balance. That silence spoke volumes. In that moment, his life mattered less than the discomfort of the wealthy. Away from the ballroom lights, the truth finally surfaced. Brandon's condition worsened rapidly: burning, numbness, blurred vision. Medical help confirmed what instinct already knew. The drink had been poisoned. The kiss everyone condemned had been an act of survival, not desire, not impulse, protection, but the damage was already done. Videos circulated instantly, stripped of context and heavy with bias. Online narratives formed within minutes, painting Brandon as reckless, dangerous, inappropriate. The same act performed by someone else might have been called heroic. From him, it was treated as criminal. Racism didn't wait for facts. It never does. As he fought to stay conscious, Brandon revealed more about himself than anyone expected. His awareness wasn't luck. It was learned through years of responsibility and loss. He wasn't just a driver trying to survive paycheck to paycheck. He was a man trained to read threats, to act under pressure, to protect even when it meant disappearing afterward. Meanwhile, Olivia's world began to fracture. The attempt on her life forced her to question everything: her father's sudden death, the people she trusted, the illusion of safety surrounding her wealth. Patterns emerged that couldn't be ignored. This wasn't an isolated incident. Someone had wanted her gone, just as they had wanted her father silenced. By the time the night ended, nothing was simple anymore. A black single father lay fighting poison after saving a woman who barely knew his name hours earlier. A billionaire heiress realized the danger around her was calculated, not random. And somewhere beyond the cameras and chaos, the people responsible were already adapting, because the poison hadn't worked. And next time they wouldn't rely on silence alone. The truth hit with the force of a collapse. Brandon could no longer stop. What began as a single act of instinct inside a glittering ballroom had now pulled back the curtain on something far more dangerous. As his body struggled to recover from the poison, the realization settled in with brutal clarity. This had never been an accident. Someone had planned it. Someone with access, patience, and the power to erase traces. As evidence surfaced, the illusion of safety around Olivia shattered completely. The elegant gala, the charity banners, the smiling faces, all of it had been camouflage. Behind closed doors, financial records didn't add up. Names that once meant loyalty now carried the weight of betrayal. Her father's sudden death, ruled natural and unquestioned, began to look disturbingly convenient. The same invisible hand that had nearly ended her life had already taken his. Brandon found himself pulled deeper into a world he'd tried to leave behind. The same instincts that made him invisible as a black man in elite spaces were now the only thing keeping Olivia alive. But that invisibility came at a cost. Every move he made was scrutinized, every decision questioned. The narrative around him was already forming in public spaces, painted as reckless, unstable, inappropriate. The idea that a black man could be a calculated protector rather than a problem was something many refused to accept. As the investigation closed in, the danger intensified. The closer they came to uncovering the truth, the more pressure mounted to silence it. Surveillance tightened. Trust became a liability. Every hallway felt watched. Every quiet moment carried the threat of violence. Brandon understood the pattern well. When powerful people feel cornered, they don't retreat, they strike harder. The confrontation that followed was inevitable. The man responsible sat comfortably behind authority, reputation, and years of influence. He didn't look like a villain, he looked respectable, untouchable, and that was the most dangerous part. When the evidence was laid bare, the reaction wasn't panic, it was confidence. The kind that comes from believing the system will protect you no matter what you've done. What followed was the most terrifying moment of the night. The truth was finally spoken out loud. The confession wasn't emotional. It wasn't dramatic. It was casual, calculated, as if lives destroyed were just numbers in a ledger. Olivia's world cracked in half as she realized the depth of the betrayal. A man her family trusted had murdered her father and tried to erase her next. When the situation exploded into chaos, Brandon reacted without hesitation. Training and instinct took over. He placed himself between danger and the person he was sworn to protect, fully aware of how quickly this could end his life. This time there would be no misunderstanding, no assumptions, only survival. The arrest came swiftly, but the damage had already been done. Power had been exposed, masks torn off, and the room stood still as reality finally caught up with the truth. But as relief washed over the moment, a darker thought settled in Brandon's mind. If this was how far they'd gone to protect their secrets, how many others had been silenced before him, and who was still watching now? By the time the night finally ended, the truth was no longer hidden behind wealth or influence. The man responsible was exposed, arrested, and stripped of the power he had used as a shield for years. The company he once helped run faced scrutiny it could no longer escape. What had started as a silent crime buried under respectability ended in accountability, but only because someone refused to stay invisible. Brandon survived. His body healed slowly, but the experience left marks that couldn't be measured by doctors. He had done the right thing and nearly lost everything for it: his reputation, his safety, his life. In the public eye, the narrative shifted only after undeniable proof emerged. Until then, he had been judged instantly, not by his actions, but by who he was: a black man in the wrong place, breaking the wrong rule at the wrong time. His heroism was questioned in ways it never would have been if he looked different. For Olivia, the loss of her father was finally given truth instead of silence. Justice didn't erase the grief, but it gave her something she'd been denied: clarity. She rebuilt not just a company, but a sense of trust rooted in transparency rather than power. And she never forgot the man who stood between her and death when no one else noticed the danger. Brandon returned to his life as a father with a deeper understanding of how fragile safety can be. He taught his daughter not just about strength, but about courage, the kind that doesn't seek recognition, the kind that acts even when the cost is high. His story didn't end with applause, it ended with responsibility. This wasn't just a story about a poisoned drink or a single shocking moment. It was a story about how racism shapes perception before facts ever matter, about how quickly judgment replaces empathy, and about how many acts of quiet bravery are dismissed simply because of who performs them. The question remains: how many people have already paid the price for doing the right thing, only to be doubted, dismissed, or erased? If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Black Community Struggles for more powerful stories about justice, truth, and our community's fight to be seen. And don't forget to hit the like button. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need them most.